Welcome back, my beautiful audio community. I really want to talk today about that secret weapon type of gear. And right now, I have been enamored, well, not right now, for the last 20 years really, I've been enamored by the Dolby 361. The reason I love it so much is I worked with Russell Elevato at Electric Lady, and I noticed he had a couple of these in the rack up in Studio C when he was a resident engineer there. This is a noise reduction unit. Now a lot of people, they go and they take the Cat22 cards and they modify them. So there's 4 compression bands on this card. 2 of the resistors that you lift release those 2 first bands, and that's everything below 80 Hertz, and the second band of compression is 80 Hertz to like 3K, I believe. And when you lift those, what Quincy Jones and John Lennon and a whole bunch of other engineers found out is it gives some air, some lift to your vocals. It's mainly a vocal trick. That's why they call it the vocal stressor mod. The Dolby Trick is a vocal stressor mod. Not to be confused with the ADR vocal stressor, which is an actual piece of outboard gear. This is something kind of crazy. All of this Dolby stuff that's made in England is for film processing. It's to remove hiss and air conditioner noise or even like tape noise from a recording, especially from film. And it plugs in like this, and then you have separate band control. Now I've been told that this isn't the same thing as the Dolby Trick, the vocal stressor mod, but I have one anyway and it's really cool. I have control over 30 to 80 Hertz, 80 Hertz to 1 kilohertz, 1 to 3 kilohertz, and then 3 kilohertz and up you can control with these faders. And I sprayed it with not contact cleaner. We never spray contact cleaner on faders or tactile buttons. Contact cleaner is only for XLR, TRS, TS, RCA, Cat5, any kind of connection. That's what contact cleaner is for. But if you want to clean a connector like this, it's contact cleaner. If you want to clean something like a fader, what do we use? Deoxit fader lube, which used to be called Cali lube until about 10 years ago. Actually, not that you're ever going to be using this anyway. What we're using is this bad chicken right here, the Dolby 361. Now, if we remove this panel, I like to actually use these as a template for plexiglass and cut a clear cover so people can see my cool label-made sticker here that says Vocal Stressor Mod or Dolby Trick Mod or whatever. And here you have it. This is the unit. I'm going to pull the power so I don't damage it. There is no on and off switch on these. This is a test tone. By the way, if yours says setup right here instead of Dolby tone, see that text right there? That means that these buttons have different festoon filament bulbs inside, and they are so hard to get. They're like 30 bucks each. And these ones that you can see the plastic on the sides, this is the one that says setup. They use the shorter bulbs, and the one that says Dolby tone and it doesn't have the plastic on the side, it's just flat on the top, they use the longer bulbs that you can get from Germany. I don't think you can even source these bulbs anymore. I'm sure there's a guy out there right now who's saying that's not true, I know where to get them. Well, please leave it in the comments below because I don't. Here's your Cat22 card, and you just unscrew these, lift the 2 resistors, and do a little, there's some other modifications I don't want to talk about because I sell the modification. If you want to go to reverb.com and you can go to my reverb shop, which is Lutz Multimedia, you can find that I sell these cards for $150 post modification, or I can just sell you one for 50 bucks if you need a card, because I do have dozens of them laying around. I also have dozens of these units laying around. That's one of the reasons I have made this video, because I do sell them, and if you need a modified Dolby Trick modified 361, I got you covered, son! So what I'd like to do today is to pop one of these open, do the modification. Let's listen to this thing before and after the modification. Also, the Dolby 360 works perfectly fine with these Cat22 cards. Has a few less buttons on the front, none of which you need. The only 2 buttons you're ever going to use on this in a recording studio is in and out. This will always be on, and then you engage the Dolby Trick on and off. Again, it's not adding high-end like the MXLs or the Avantone or some of these cheap Chinese condenser microphones that add a huge bump between like 3 and 6K. It's not doing that. It's not a sonic maximizer either. It's really a multi-band compressor. That's what the Dolby 361 is, with some other circuitry in its topology. But it's really a brilliant piece of gear, and let's listen to it now, pre and post Dolby Trick modification. Alright, welcome to my shop. I'm going to be modifying actually about 6 of these today. And basically what we do is pop the screws off like so. That's the bottom of our PCB. And here is the top of our PCB. Now on these, they might all look different with different caps and resistors and cathodes and diodes and all that. But right here, these two resistors are the resistors we're going to lift. There's a little more to do, but if you want to get the basic modification, this is really all you need to do, and you'll have the Dolby Trick. So it's these two resistors right here. 1, 2. Those two right there. I've got this great pulse wave motor for growing plants hydroponically. It just pushes air through an HVAC system. I rigged it to a PVC reducer, and this is an actual gerbil hamster play tube that runs to a pulse wave inline fan motor. And then I have over here a soldering iron, and I'm going to take these two resistors as shown. I'm going to flip them over and desolder 2 of the legs and lift them. When you hear someone say lift the legs of a resistor, that's all they're saying, is you're just lifting 2 of the legs. You don't have to pull the whole resistor out. You can just lift 2 of the legs, because that way if you ever change your mind and you want to put them back, they're right there and you can just put them back in circuit. Having them out of circuit with just 1 leg is the same as pulling the resistor completely. You want to lift the left side of the legs if you're looking down at it too. This top one is R109 and that one on the bottom is R209. This is 80 Hertz and that's 80 Hertz to like 3 kilohertz. We're lifting the 2 bands of compression. I'm just going to mark them with my Sharpie with a couple of dots. This is called a solder sucker. You can get one of these on eBay for about $1 and it does exactly what it says. See that? It's lifted. Watch this. If I've done it right, the resistor will just pop right out. I'm really not that gentle with these PCBs as I probably should be. There you go. Both legs completely lifted. Now what I like to do is you can either use heat shrink, or if you're in a rush, just take a piece of electrical tape. This will remind me later of where they are. And it'll also keep them from touching the inside metal. And I'm just going to fold this electric tape around those lifted resistors, push them down. There's a little more that I do to these. I'm going to screw these back together after I do that. And if you'd like to buy one from me, come to Let's Multimedia, Reverb Shop at reverb.com, type in Let's Multimedia. That's my limited liability company, and I will sell you one of these cards. Alright, where my people at? Are you ready to have your mind blown? Again, modified, non-modified. Let's first talk about what you're listening to. I'm going to disengage the Cat22 card that you've been listening to. This is the SM7B. This is Quincy Jones' mic he picked for Michael Jackson. Bruce Swedien, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones. This is the mic they used. This is the effect they got on the mic. You want to know why? Because I have the foot switch for the 361 and I'm going to disengage it. Look, man, no hands. Listen to how bad that sounds compared to when it is engaged. Just listen to that. I don't need to record it and then print it through and we compare the two. You can just hear it like this, live in real time. Out, this is the SM7B into a Neve 1073, into an Apollo X16, into a brand new Mac. These are great converters, great preamps, a pretty decent mic. This is what you've been listening to on YouTube without a Dolby 361. Here is the vocal stressor card once again. Oh my goodness, mind-blowing. What is it doing? Let's talk about it. Let's switch over to the screen here. If you go to audiothing.com, they have a blog post here called the Dolby Trick. And if you scroll down, they show you basically what the techs that Bruce Swedien was employing at the time were doing. Band 1, which I showed you, below 80 Hertz, and band 2 is 80 Hertz to 3 kilohertz. So you're not compressing the low end, you're just lifting the high end. So I wouldn't recommend this with an Aventone CV12 or an MXL or any of these brand new AKG 414s. I would use this on an old 414 EB or some of these older beautiful condenser microphones, or When I really would use it is on a killer dynamic like the SM7B or an SM7, an original SM7. Once again, let me disengage it. That's what an SM7B sounds like, YouTube. Okay? There is a little more than just lifting R109 and 209 resistors. There's a little more to it to tune it, bias it, and calibrate the cards. I do all that in-house. It's kind of like the RS-124 Abbey Road conversion. I don't really talk about it because it's kind of my bread and butter, how I feed the gaping mouths of my children. And I even sell these unique covers. If you're missing one of these covers, I sell these. And this is the portion of the video where we shamelessly whore our products out. You want to hear some singing through it? Angels, angels have called you here to me. Oh, angels, angels have called you here to me. Oh, other than this squeaky chair I got to throw in the trash because I'm in a recording studio and I have a squeaky chair. Pretty freaking amazing. Look at this rack of gear. This is Bruce Swedien's collection, okay? Look at that. A couple of 361s. Everyone should know what all this is. GML 2800, the Lil Dipper. Look at that, the Yuri Lil Dipper. And a 910. What would we do without the Eventide Harmonizer 910? Lexicon stuff. Of course, you got an LA2A in there. You've got some Yuri compressors, some 1176s, some old DBX pieces of junk. I'm sorry, these amazing DBX compressors. But there it is, the Dolby 361 noise reduction system. Holla at your boy! Leaving out the decoding stage during the playback produces an artificially bright sounding signal, basically hacking the 361 into an exciter. An oral exciter, many of you know, is very similar to an expander or a, BBE, had the sonic maximizer. You might hear that. It's all the same thing. Exciter, sonic maximizer, expander. So what they would do, and I've read up on this, he didn't just run Michael Jackson through the 361 out of one of these, but they would do what a lot of guys do. You mix both signals into each other. So it's essentially parallel compression is what it is. You're using it as a parallel compressor, but it's actually parallel multiband compression. Multiband compressors are famous with mastering engineers. This is a layman's mastering trick, and you're doing it to tape, essentially, which is kind of nuts. So let's listen now to a Cat 22 card that has not been modified. Let's listen to an original Cat 22 card right out of the box. This 361 has been recapped, so it's going to sound really like it did in the 70s, okay? I'm going to pop out my modified vocal stressor card and put in a Cat 22 card, and let's hear if we can hear the difference. Okay, can you hear me? Listen closely to the overtones, especially the high band compression that you're hearing. Okay, listen, I'm going to switch it out. Listen, I just switched it out. Can you hear the difference? I hear it already. It is compressing the low end. Da-da-da-da. Listen to that. Wow, what a difference, right? So I see why they lifted the resistors and disabled the low-end compression. It just sounds like thin and shrill. And you maintain the presence, the body of the vocal by disengaging that. Now, if you have a few bucks, I see these things going on Reverb and eBay for like $2,000, which is kind of absurd. But essentially, it uses a 7-pin XLR-F and XLR-M cable. It's F on this end, so that goes into the unit, and the other end of the cable is hardwired to one of these cars, which just acts as a conduit, like the other end of the plug into the machine, and then you would just lower these two bands, therefore bypassing them, and crank these two. Actually, you can kind of adjust them to your liking, which is really cool. If you've got the extra money, I highly recommend one of these. Can I show you one thing before I let you go? All right, if we look at the Dolby 361 manual, this thing was designed in 1966. It's so cool how they reference application. They look at the applications. the reason the engineers designed this thing. Okay, magnetic sound recording, mono and stereo tape recording. Obviously, it takes hiss out of tape. Big surprise there, right? It's a Dolby noise reduction unit. Multi-track tape recording. Obviously, 1624 tracks. That's 2-inch tape. Considerably improved by the Dolby system. Blah, blah, blah. Big surprise there. Disc cutting. And then we have sound delay and echo systems. Tape delay. If you have an RE201, you can clean it up with this unit. And I have to admit, I've tried it and it is amazing. They're both mono units, so it works fantastic. So look at this, digital applications, blah, blah, blah. But if we come up to release prints, this is my favorite part of the manual. So they talk about early methods of recording. The reproductions were limited. Cinemas were designed to have high-frequency roll-off, known as the Academy roll-off, to reduce the effects of wideband and impulsive noise. The loss is severe, 15 dB at 8 kilohertz, which when added to high-frequency attenuation in the speaker-screen combination caused dialogue and music to be dull and indistinct. This right here is why they invented this. To improve intelligibility, it has become common studio practice to boost middle and high frequencies during dubbing, causing further distortion due to limited modulation capabilities of film. So they invented the Dolby A-type system. I think that is just so cool. That's a piece of history, and it's why the greatest record ever recorded, well, at least the highest selling, that's subjective, of course, greatest, but Michael Jackson Thriller came from this paragraph. The sound, well, at least the clarity of an SM7 on that record came from this paragraph, 6.4.3 of the Dolby manual. I just am enamored by this type of history because we are diving deep into one of the greatest recordings of all time. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. JML Recording Studios. One more time, let me disengage. Can you believe it? It sounds incredible. Do you want to hear a guitar recording before we go? Why not? Can I just tell you, the 361 on a guitar is mind-blowing. Okay? I've got an old vintage Martin D18. I think it's the greatest recording acoustic guitar of all time for one reason. The D35 is too boomy, too much low end. It sounds too good. You want an acoustic guitar to fold into a mix. You got to EQ the crap out of a D35 or a nice big jumbo. With the D18, you don't need to EQ it at all. It folds right into the mix. If you're looking for a simple solution for a recording studio, get yourself a D18. You're not going to be impressed when you first put a mic on it and record it. But when you mix, and don't forget, you never mix by soloing tracks. You mix with everything, because a soloed track will invariably sound completely different EQ-wise, frequency-wise. When it's folded into a mix, a D18 will, just like a good pair of monitors, it cuts down on the time it takes to mix. So that's why I love the D18, and that's why we're going to use it right now. Also, if you're only using one mic on a guitar, point it at the 12th fret. That's your sweet spot. That is the golden zone. If you have two mics, look into the KM64. A tube small diaphragm condenser or medium diaphragm condenser paired with something like this, killer. I like the SM81 with a Lomo SDC with the CKC capsule, which is their coveted capsule, or a KM64 is fantastic. And if you have money in the SM81, which is a Shure, very inexpensive small diaphragm condenser, one of the greatest acoustic guitar mics ever. Another good acoustic guitar mic that I can't recommend enough is the M160 by Baird Dynamic, dual ribbon. So let's put it on 12 and let's turn it off, okay? That is without. Now, engaged. Ready? Out, in. Especially for fingers, just classic finger picking. I mean, it can't be beat. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching JML Recording. Please like and subscribe. If you're interested in any of these products, I do sell all this Dolby stuff and a ton of other gear. If you're interested in recording and you're 15 minutes away from Manhattan, New York, or you want to take a trip out to New York City, come check me out, jmlrecordingstudios.com. Like, subscribe, mash the buttons. Check out my Instagram. There it is, JML Recording Studios. And thank you. See you on the next video. God bless.